I remember the smell of lilies. They were everywhere, draped over the casket, lining the funeral home's hallway, even tucked into a vase in our bedroom because my sister thought it would be comforting. But nothing about death is comforting, especially when it steals the only person you thought you could trust. The lilies were supposed to symbolize peace. To me, they just smelled like loss. Tom died suddenly. A heart attack, the doctor said. He was 42. One minute he was texting me from his office, reminding me to pick up almond milk, and the next he was gone. I was folding laundry when the hospital called. I screamed so loudly that my neighbor Karen came running, barefoot in her pajamas, banging on the door. I don't remember what I said to her. I just remember collapsing, the phone still clutched in my hand. The funeral was a blur. I don't know who cried more, me or Tom's mother, Ellen, whose wails echoed through the chapel. People came, brought casseroles I didn't touch, squeezed my hand like I was fragile glass. I stood there in a black dress that felt too tight, nodding, saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I was hollow, like my grief had carved me out from the inside, leaving nothing but an echo. 7 days later, the house was too quiet. I hadn't washed my hair. I was surviving on toast and instant coffee, the kind Tom hated because it tasted like burnt regret. I kept his side of the bed untouched, the pillow still dented from his head. His running shoes stayed by the door, laces tangled. His toothbrush stood in the bathroom cup, bristles frayed. I clung to every piece of him, as if keeping his things in place could bring him back. Looking back, there were signs I ignored. Tom's work trips that lasted entire weekends, when he'd come home smelling faintly of a cologne I didn't recognize. The late-night calls he'd step outside to take, saying it was a client. Once I found a receipt for a coffee shop in Boston, dated a weekend he'd said he was in Chicago. I asked him about it, and he laughed, said it was a mix-up, a colleague using his card. I believed him. I always believed him. Love makes you blind, or maybe it just makes you choose not to see. Then the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, with an area code from somewhere in Connecticut. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something, grief, curiosity, or just exhaustion, made me pick up. I wish I hadn't. A woman's voice, calm, polite, too polite. Hi, is this Melissa Chambers? Yes, I said, rubbing my temple, my voice hoarse from disuse. Who is this? My name is Claire, Claire Thompson. I'm so sorry to call you like this. I know it's a terrible time, but I believe we need to talk. It's about Tom. Her tone said everything before her words did. My stomach dropped, a cold, heavy weight settling in my chest. What about Tom? I asked, my voice cracking. She hesitated. I could hear her breathing, each inhale careful, like she was picking words that might detonate. I'm his wife, she said. Silence, not metaphorical silence. Real, heart-stopping, scream-in-your-throat silence. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter to keep from falling. I'm sorry? I whispered, barely audible. I've been married to Tom for 11 years, she said, her voice trembling now. We have a son. His name is Caleb. He's 9. The blood drained from my body. I sank to the floor, the phone pressed to my ear like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My mind raced, trying to find a foothold, something to make this make sense. I don't understand, I said. I've been married to Tom for 15 years. I met him when I was 22. I was his wife. Claire didn't respond right away. When she did, she was crying. Quiet, gasping sobs that I recognized from my own nights alone. So was I. I didn't hang up. I don't know why. Maybe I needed her to say something, anything, that would unravel this nightmare. But nothing did. Nothing ever would. I only found out because of the obituary, Claire said, her voice breaking. It listed you as his wife. I thought it was a mistake. I looked you up on Facebook. That's how I got your number. A mistake. Yes. A typo in the newspaper. A glitch in reality. But this wasn't a typo. This was my entire marriage splitting open like a cracked windshield. Sharp, dangerous, impossible to ignore. She asked if we could meet. In public. A cafe downtown, neutral ground. I said yes, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. There was a sick, desperate need to see her face, to prove this was real. The next day, I sat in a corner booth at the Daily Grind, a coffee shop with exposed brick walls and the hum of espresso machines. I arrived 20 minutes early, my hands wrapped around a latte I didn't drink. I wanted to see her first, to study her before she saw me. She walked in on time, petite, with brown hair and a loose bun, wearing a navy coat too thin for the November chill. She looked normal, like someone you'd trust to watch your kids or share a recipe, not someone who'd upend your life. "Melissa?" she asked, her voice soft. I nodded. She sat across from me, her hands trembling as she clutched her mug. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying all night. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't come here to hurt you." "You already did," I said, quieter than I meant. We sat in silence, the cafe buzzing around us, cups clinking, baristas calling names. But we were trapped in a private dimension of betrayal. I studied her face, searching for clues. Did she laugh like me? Did she love the same parts of Tom I did? Did she know the man I thought I knew? Claire opened her purse and slid a photo across the table. "This is Caleb," she said. "Tom was a good father, I thought." I looked at the boy. He had Tom's eyes, big, green, wide set. No denying it. My hands shook. I wasn't just grieving my husband anymore. I was grieving a stranger. "How did you meet?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She told me everything. They met at a real estate seminar in Hartford 11 years ago. Tom said he was divorced, that his ex-wife had cheated, that he was rebuilding. He was charming, attentive, always bringing her coffee just the way she liked it. Just like he was with me. They married a year later, had Caleb 2 years after that. He traveled a lot, she said. Said it was for work, conferences, client meetings. I never suspected. I laughed bitterly. That's how he explained the weekends he didn't come home to me. Work trips. Boston, Chicago, Seattle. Her mouth dropped open. "You mean he was with me? On the weekends?" We stared at each other, both doing the math. Every business trip, every late night, every birthday he missed. It clicked into place, a grotesque puzzle. I remembered the times he'd come home exhausted, saying he'd been stuck in meetings. I'd make him soup, rub his shoulders, feel grateful he was back. Now I knew he was splitting his life, his love, his lies. I felt sick. Claire reached into her bag again and pulled out a ring. A gold band with a small sapphire. Simple but elegant. "He gave me this last Christmas," she said, her voice cracking. "Said it was his grandmother's, an heirloom." I stared at it. My heart stopped. It was identical to the ring Tom gave me on our 10th anniversary, the one he said was a family treasure, passed down from his Nana. I pulled my own ring from my finger and placed it beside hers. They were twins. "How many more women have one?" I whispered, more to myself than to her. Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know." I couldn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the rings. My ring, her ring, our ring. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to curse the man who wasn't here to face us. But I just kept breathing, in, out. Like I was made of glass, and any sharp movement would shatter me. Did he treat you well?" Claire asked, her voice small. What a stupid question. What a sincere one. "Yes," I said. "He treated me like I was the only woman in the world." Her tears spilled over. "Me too." And there it was, the horrible truth. We were both loved, and we were both lied to, so completely, so seamlessly, that we never thought to doubt. Claire had to leave first. Caleb was getting out of school, and she didn't want him to see her cry. Before she stood, she reached across the table and touched my hand. "I don't hate you," she said. I don't know how to hate him either." I nodded. "Me neither." She left, her coat flapping as she stepped into the cold. I stayed, ordered another coffee I didn't drink, and tried to rewrite the last 15 years of my life. That night, I went home and tore through Tom's closet. I yanked every shirt off the hanger, threw his shoes into a garbage bag, cried over a stack of his stupid neckties. I screamed into his winter coat until my throat was raw. Then I opened his laptop. I knew the password. It was the same one we used for our Netflix account, a silly combination of our initials and our wedding date. I hadn't touched his computer in years, but grief makes you reckless. I clicked on his email, expecting nothing. What I found was everything. Years of messages, 3 women, not dozens, but enough to shatter me again. One called him her fiancé. Another wrote about their weekend in Napa. A third, a coworker, sent flirty notes about last night. He'd used different email accounts, different names sometimes, but it was him, always him. I sat there, scrolling until my eyes burned, each message a knife twisting deeper. I called my best friend, Julie. She came over, no questions, no judgment. She found me on the floor, surrounded by Tom's shirts, the laptop glowing like a crime scene. She held me as I sobbed, my body shaking like it might break apart. How could I be this blind? I kept asking. You weren't blind, she said. You were in love. Love. That word felt like a cruel joke now, a trick. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tom's face, smiling, lying. I remembered our first date, when he took me to a diner and we shared a milkshake like teenagers. I remembered our wedding, how he cried when I walked down the aisle. I remembered the night he stayed up with me when I had the flu, holding my hair as I vomited. Were those moments real, or were they just part of his performance? The next day, I called Tom's colleague, Mark, who'd worked with him for years. I didn't know what I was looking for. Answers, closure, anything. Mark sounded uneasy when I mentioned Tom's trips. He was always on the move, Mark said. Sometimes he'd say he was meeting clients, but I don't know, he was vague. I figured he was just private. Private. That word haunted me. Tom wasn't private. He was a magician, compartmentalizing his life with the precision of a surgeon. I met with a lawyer, too, hoping to untangle the financial mess Tom might have left. The lawyer confirmed what I'd feared. Tom had 2 credit cards I didn't know about, with charges for hotels I'd never stayed in, jewelry I'd never worn, dinners in cities we'd never visited. The lawyer said I could contest some debts, but it would take months. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to understand how deep the lies went. The hardest part of grief isn't the crying. It's the silence. It's the Tuesday morning when you reach for your phone to text him something stupid, like how the neighbor's dog is wearing a sweater again, and realize there's no one to read it. But now, my grief had mutated. It wasn't just loss. It was betrayal, humiliation, anger with nowhere to go. I'd been mourning a man who never existed, just a version of him, a beautifully edited draft. I didn't tell Claire about the other women right away. I needed to process it first, to sit with my own wreckage before adding gasoline to hers. But I wrote her a letter, a real one, on paper with ink, because some wounds deserve more than a text. I told her about the emails, the 3 women, the overlapping lies. I told her she wasn't alone, and neither was I. I told her that, strangely, I didn't hate her. In fact, she was the only person who might understand this particular kind of pain. A month later, we met again, this time at a park near her house. It was December, the air sharp with frost. She brought Caleb, her son. I'd been nervous about meeting him, afraid I'd see Tom and break. But when I looked at Caleb, kicking a soccer ball with his scarf trailing, I saw innocence, a child caught in the mess of his father's choices. Claire and I sat on a bench, wrapped in coats, watching Caleb play. She told me about her life with Tom, how he'd read Caleb bedtime stories, how he'd promised to take them to Disney World. Then she told me about her anger, not just at Tom, but at herself for believing him. I'm selling the house, she said. I can't stay there. Every room feels like a lie. I'm moving to Seattle, starting over. Caleb deserves better. I admired her. She wasn't just surviving, she was rebuilding. I told her about the lawyer, the credit cards, the emails. I told her I was trying to rebuild too, but I didn't know where to start. You'll figure it out, she said. And for the first time, she smiled. A real one, not born of pain. Before we parted, we hugged. No awkwardness, just recognition. 2 women who'd loved the same liar, now bound by something stronger than his betrayal. I don't hate you either, she said, echoing my words from the cafe. I smiled. For her, for Caleb, for all of us starting over. In the end, Tom got a proper burial. But the truth? That took longer to lay to rest. I stopped asking why. It didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was who I became after, so I started living. For real this time. I booked a trip to Rome, something I'd always wanted, but never done because Tom preferred beaches. I wandered the Colosseum, ate cacio e pepe in a tiny trattoria, and cried in a church because the candles reminded me of lilies. I cut my hair short and dyed it auburn, a color Tom once said was too loud. I started writing essays, not for publication, just for me, about grief, love, and the woman I was becoming. Every now and then, grief sneaks back like a shadow. I don't push it away. I make room for it. I sit with it. I let it remind me how far I've come. Tom is gone. So is the illusion. But I'm still here, wiser, stronger, whole. I wrote that letter to myself, the one I promised. To the woman who loved blindly, who gave everything, who grieved a man who never existed. I forgave her, and I finally said goodbye.